Hey guys, we're going to do a really quick business video about wanting. I know we just have been talking a lot in the group about sharing and growing your business and how to grow your business. And now we finally have we have 3 executives on our team now and that have hit executive rank that far. I've ranked silver. And so that's kind of exciting. But I really want to talk to you today about how to make this a profitable business. This is my second profitable business. My first one was my blog. My second one is now my essential oil business, where they both generate a profit for me each month. That profit varies for both of my businesses. And at this point, my husband will be not working any longer next year, other than part-time, because he wants to. He told me he needs that for his mental sanity. So he's a nurse, and so that's fine. He can pick up some part-time work just to get out of the house. But starting next year in 2017, he will probably around the fall, he will not be working anymore, on full-time basis. So, and then my goal is to come home within the next year or two after that at the most. So again, turning it into a profitable business where we can work from home. And if that's something, so that's my why. And that's what we're going to talk about quickly today is, what is your why? Why do you want to turn your business, your Young Living business, into a profitable business? What are you going to use that for? Is it an extra car payment? Is it to send your kids to private school? Is it their college fund? Is it so you can work from home? Maybe you hate your boss, or maybe you hate your job. Maybe you're in a field that isn't fitted for you and you feel that this might be something for you. That's why this is my why. My why is for both of us to eventually stay at home down the road and not have to work. I mean, I'm a teacher. I have a pension. I don't even necessarily have to do this, but I want to do it because I do believe that this is a really good fit for my personality. I feel like oils are I love my oils. They're a good fit for me. The business side of it is a good fit for my personality. I love sharing. And the second thing that I have besides my why, and that I don't see in a lot of these videos that people talk about, is that I have the faith to believe it. Okay. So I had to wait. If you don't know my story, I had to wait 8 years to become a mom for the first time. My son's adopted from Guatemala. And then I had to wait a total of 16 years to have a pregnancy after 16 years of marriage. My husband and I had a baby through IVF in 2014. I had to wait a long time to have that happen. And I believed from the time I got married and we found out that we were infertile until he was born, that I would be a mom, but I also believed that I would have a birth child. And so you may not know my story, but my husband and I are Christians, and we ended up, praying for a baby, and we went through the IVF clinic, and I had all my stuff ready. My nurse's name was Betsy Rathel. We were going through Shady Grove Fertility, which is in Rockville, Maryland. And I was getting ready to order my medications when the Lord called on me in my prayer time to think about adopting. Don't know why, but in my prayer time, I kept feeling like the Lord was speaking that to me. And I ended up, really just not wanting to be in a goldfish bowl at that point, thinking, Lord, if I adopt, and the child, especially from a foreign country, he's not going to look like me. How's that going to be for him and for us? And I just didn't know. And so I love Stephen Curtis Chapman. He's a Christian singer. If you don't know his story, tragic, beautiful story about his son and their youngest adopted daughter dying because of the older son basically backed over her in a car. But yeah, anyways, another story for another day. You need to check out their story. Stephen Curtis Chapman, Mary Beth Chapman, love them so much. But anyways, so I got their adoption agency's packet in the mail, and I watched the video, and I watched their personal story on the DVD. So I had the CD-ROM that had all the information for the agency, but then I had the DVD, which was like their story, footage of them going to China, footage of the minute they got their daughter, footage of all this. And I was devastated. And I just realized God, I thought, was calling me to adopt now. Instead of going down in vitro road, even though I knew in my heart I would be pregnant someday, I had the faith to believe it, and I believe God for really big things, which is a whole other story for another day, but I just really believed it. And so I, trusted him that it was okay to adopt, that this was where God was calling me for right now in my life, even though I had other whys and other goals and other things that I was praying through. So I ended up watching the DVD every night and crying. And so by the fourth night, I had to go to school. The next day, it was a Thursday night. It's like 1:50 in the morning, and we didn't have a cable. We had a Christian satellite. So I was watching Oral Roberts' son, Richard Roberts, out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, on our Sky Angel satellite TV station. And they were like, call for 24-hour prayer. And I was like, never done this before. Never really, like I said, we had no experience with calling a prayer hotline at all. But it's like 1:50 in the morning, and I prayed, and this woman, she prayed this beautiful prayer over me. She's like, Lord, we pray for this girl that you would show her, Lord. And she was just all out in prayer. I mean, it was like I had never prayed with anybody like that locally. Like at my church, like growing up, you didn't even raise your hands when you were worshiping. You just were very, like almost Mennonite, but not. And so I wasn't used to that. And so she prayed this beautiful prayer over me, and hung up. And 10 minutes later, the show's changed, and I was getting ready to go to bed. And it was a guy named James Robinson. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he has a show on TV, and it's like a talk show that sometimes runs on like public stations, so you might have seen it. Christian talk show host, and he comes on the channel, and he's like, basically says, today our special guest is Mary Beth Chapman, talking about why you should adopt and her adoption story. And I called the prayer hotline back and told them, please tell that woman that her prayer worked already. And went downstairs, shook my husband, woke him up. I was like, we are meant to adopt. We're going to adopt. And he was like, okay, and fell back asleep. And totally did not remember that conversation the next morning, but went with me to a meeting. And 9 months later, our son was home from Guatemala, and he is now 10. He was meant to be part of our family. And I tell him that story every day when we talk about, why, things with his birth family, or, how he came to our family. And I tell him, AJ, you never have to worry that this was God's plan for you. It may not be God's perfect plan. I think in God's perfect world, everybody would be able to live with their biological parents, and everyone would act perfect, and everything would be perfect. But this was God's perfect plan for you in an imperfect world. And you were meant to be our son. And, I just hold true to that story, and he knows the miracle story of how he came to be in our family, that God was calling on our hearts, that we could have had an in vitro, we could have had a baby that way. We didn't want that baby right away. We wanted him. God had designed for him to be our first child. And so like 9 years later, I went through the same process again, praying and praying and praying. The Lord shut every door to adoption. We even opened the door to adoption again. I even laid that prayer request of having a pregnancy on the altar and was like, okay, Lord, maybe you want us to adopt again, and started down that road. Every door shut. It was like crazy shut. So then, went through the in vitro process, and the night that I took my pregnancy test, I already felt in my prayer time the Lord had told me to test, that I was pregnant, that it was okay to go ahead and test, and ended up looking at the stick and saying, and thinking it was negative, and saying to my husband, who's a nurse, oh, it's negative, it didn't work, oh my gosh, whatever, I'm so bummed. And he's like, well, let me come look at it. And he comes back in the bedroom, and he looks at it, and he's like, you read that wrong, you are pregnant. And sure enough, I was pregnant. And so our son was born in 2014. So my why is already there. My faith to believe it is already there. And so maybe this journey for you is going to be a journey of faith. Whether you're on my Young Living team or not, whether you're part of my oily family or not, maybe God's going to use my story to speak to somebody. But I just want you to understand that yes, having a why is important, but having the faith to believe that God wants you to do it is a whole other thing. And that is why people quit or give up. When I started my businesses, I believed that those were things that God was calling me to do, and I was meant to do those things. And that I had the faith to believe that He would see me through. And so I don't get stressed about, oh, I got to find new customers, and I got to do this, and I got to do that. And when the times where I'm a little bit tempted maybe to head in that direction, I go back to these stories and remind myself that there's two things that one of my favorite pastor talks about, and that's the arm of the flesh and the arm of the Lord. And the arm of the flesh is that feeling you get when you're like, you're trying to force it. You're trying to make it work. And the arm of the Lord is when instead of going like this, you're going like this to receive. So my prayer for you today, whether you're a Christian or not, you don't have to be a Christian to be in my oily group. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to show you from my example in my own life that I'm looking at God with Young Living going, okay, Lord, what is it you have for me with these oils? I will make it to silver consistently and gold consistently and above when it's His time for that to happen. I don't have to worry about that. So that's why it's so easy for me to share my oils, because I'm not, even when I have a class, I'm not worried about whether people are going to sign up or not, because it's in His timing. So I hope this okay, guys. 3 dogs. So I hope this message has helped you, and I'm going to be praying for you today, whether you're my oily team or not. I'll be praying for you, and I just really want this to encourage you today. Okay, guys, talk to you later. Bye-bye.